I'm Mary Kreitz. I'm going to talk a little bit about suicide today, and we're going to hopefully not bring you down too much, but this is an important topic. I do want to say right off, I didn't bring enough handouts, and I apologize for that, but I am going to make sure that Mark gets copies of it so that he can get them to you shortly, because part of what I wanted to do is make sure that you have stuff, because one of the things that happens when really intense situations, and having someone tell you that they are suicidal counts as a really intense situation, our brains shut off and we have that moment of going, I know what I'm supposed to do and I can't remember it right now. Then you'll have this nice little packet of handouts that you can pull out of your drawer and go, oh right, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it sort of brings you back into being able to be a functional, well thought out person. I realize that some of the stuff in the handout you may already be familiar with, but keep in mind that it's designed to be there for you at those moments where your brain just shuts down and you go, now what? That gives you the now what. So we'll make sure that everybody does get copies of those. All right, where do I aim to? Oh, helps if I turn it on. All right. Here we go. Have you guys heard of the ACEs? Is there anyone who has not heard of ACEs, does not know what I mean when I'm talking about ACEs? All right, great. Well, at the last session I had to do a little explaining because there were a few people who did not know what it was. I just want to make sure that I'm not talking about something that people are going, huh? There's been a lot of research on the ACEs. This has been a study ongoing since 1995 and continues to be studied. But they found that experiences in early childhood are very much linked to outcomes later on in life in terms of people's physical health, their mental health, their ability to function in a job and maintain having a job, their ability to be a functional member of society, and their ability to have relationships that are healthy, even as adults. You guys are dealing with adolescents who are still in their childhood and still possibly having these adverse childhood experiences. If we recognize them early and do things to help early, it actually has a lifelong effect for people. When nothing happens to intervene, that's when these later life problems can happen. A person who has 4 ACEs and does not have any sort of intervention, any sort of help, is likely to die 10 years younger than a person with 0 ACEs. That's why we need the intervention. That's why we need to make sure people are getting the help, because we don't want them to end up being that statistic of the person who died younger. And ACEs can impact our lives in a lot of different ways. But the one in particular that we're paying attention to today is suicide attempts. There is a direct connection between having adverse early life experiences and being at risk of attempting suicide. A person who has just 1 ACE has been found to be 3 to 5 times more likely to commit suicide or to attempt suicide. A person who has 6 or more ACEs is 24 times more likely to attempt suicide in comparison to a person who has no ACEs. That's a huge risk, and it's not a risk that I'm willing to make. So that's why I think it's important to recognize when people are going through early life experiences, to recognize when a person is feeling suicidal, and to be able to reach out and offer them support and help so that they can get through it in a healthy way. It's hard to talk about suicide. Why? Why is it so hard to talk about suicide? Because we don't want to say anything wrong. Life or death is really on the line here. I don't want to say the wrong thing and make it worse. I don't want to tip the scale in the wrong way. That's a very frightening thing, and that is part of what makes your brain shut down and go, oh, I'm blank, I don't know what to do. We don't want to say the wrong thing, but the truth is, you can't plant the idea by bringing it up. If I ask someone, are you thinking about hurting yourself? They're not going to be more likely to go out and do it because I asked that question. If it's already on their mind, they are more likely to maybe tell me about it because I just opened that door and said, I'm willing to listen to this. I'm not afraid to ask you. If they're not, they're going to say, no, I'm not. And then you can move on and talk about something else. But you're not going to plant that idea. Chances are, if you're picking up enough cues that you feel like you need to ask, there's something there. So don't be afraid to ask that question. You're not going to do harm by asking it. You're likely to be able to help by asking it. Another reason we don't want to talk about it is we feel like, well, I don't know what to do. This person is obviously having problems. I don't know the solutions to their problems. I don't know how to fix whatever made them feel like their life wasn't worth living. What am I going to do about that? You don't have to solve their problems. You don't have to have all the answers. You have to care. And by asking a person about, are you thinking about this? Or just saying, I'm worried about you. You don't seem like yourself. That shows you care. And then maybe if they really are having that problem and they really do need help, you can help them connect with someone who knows how to help. But a lot of times they're not going to go do that on their own. They need you to reach out. They need you to notice that they need help. They may not know where to go for help. They might be scared to go look for help. They may be scared to bring it up because what if you judge me? What if you say there's something bad about me? But if you bring it up, you're saying it's okay. So that's one of the reasons we need to get past our fears and bring it up. Not talking about it won't make it go away. We sometimes hope, well, maybe it'll just pass and we'll move on and everything will be fine. If they're really suicidal, it's not just going to pass and they're going to be fine. They need to talk about it to get past it. And when I'm working with kids, a lot of time I use the metaphor of having a cut or a scrape on your skin and hoping that everything will be fine but not doing anything about it. And then an infection sets in. And instead of just needing it to be washed and bandaged, instead you might need medication, or you might need shots, or an actual procedure done to get rid of that infection because it was allowed to get worse by not doing anything. That's what it can be like when somebody's having that emotional pain and they're really feeling like their life has gotten to a point where it's not worth living. If we let it go, it's going to continue to get worse. If we catch it early on and say, hey, what do you need? We have more of a chance that we can help them to get past it. And it's never too late because even when that infection is roaring, there's still a lot of things we can do. So at any point that you catch it and are able to say something, that's worth it. We don't want to wait till a point where they have to amputate an arm because that infection got out of control. We want to make sure that we're bringing it up and talking about it and offering help. Another reason that it's hard to talk about suicide is something that we call the grief closet. Everybody in their house has this place. It's a closet or a drawer or a cabinet somewhere where you put all the stuff that you don't know what to do with, or you just don't want to deal with it. All the junk from your house, all the stuff that's just too complicated, I'll fix that later. All the jumbled Christmas lights that you're going to untangle at some point and make sure that you fix all the bulbs that burned out. Well, I don't have time for that now. I'm just going to shove it in the closet. What happens when you come along and you open that closet? It's still there. And chances are there's so many things in there that it all comes tumbling out once I open that door. So every time I open the door, I'm going to open it and shove things in and close it real quick. A lot of us are doing that with our emotional lives. Things happen, and I don't want to deal with this, so I'm going to shove it in the back. Something happened, I don't even know what to think about this. I'm going to shove it in the back. Something happens, I'm not comfortable with the way this makes me feel, so I don't want to think about it. Shove it in the back. But then something comes along and opens that door, whether I want it or not, and all my stuff is going to tumble out, right? A lot of times people are afraid that's going to happen, that if I sit down and talk to this kid who's having all this pain, my own pain is going to well up and I'm going to become an emotional mess in front of this kid, and then I'm no help to anybody because I'm blubbering on the floor. Is that going to happen? Not as likely, because what tends to happen that overrides that is that our sense of wanting to help someone and protect someone else protects us as well. If I'm focused on helping you, then it's not about me and my emotional stuff. It might still be bubbling up in the background there, and I might need to go take care of that and do some introflexion and see what's going on there, or I might need to go get myself some help later on. But in that moment that I'm dealing with that kid, I can focus on them and take care of them without losing it in front of them, as long as I stay focused on that child. And are there people in this room that are parents? Okay, what happens on the days that you're sick or you're having a rough day? Do you stop taking care of your kids and go, you're on your own tonight, man, I can't deal with it. Feed yourselves. No, you still take care of your children. You still parent them even when you're not feeling well, because that's what needs to be done, and you know it's that important. And it's sort of the same thing when we're dealing with a kid that's in a lot of pain and they're coming to you for help. Even if you've got your own stuff, you can still be there to help them out. Now, you might need to go take care of yourself afterward, but in that moment, you can still be there to take care of them. You don't have to be afraid that all your stuff is going to dump out and be right there in front of them. Warning signs. Everybody wants to know, how do I know if a kid is suicidal? What do I look for? First thing that I'll tell you is sometimes there are no warning signs. Sometimes there just aren't things to pick up on. That might be because the suicidal act was so impulsive that they really didn't think it out ahead of time. So there wasn't time to put signs out there for people to pick up on. Sometimes what happens is that there are no warning signs because the person was very knowledgeable about warning signs and knowledgeable about what other people will look for and doesn't want anyone to stop them. And so they'll make a point to not project anything out there. Sometimes the warning signs happen when you're not around. And that's just part of life, that you're not going to be able to pick up on the signs that weren't there in front of you. It's okay if you didn't get the warning signs. However, we still want to know what they are in case they do pop up in front of us. There's a handout, for those of you that got it, that is a green and white sheet that has this on there. Those of you that didn't get it, you will. So it'll be coming. But the easy way to remember what the warning signs are is the word facts. We're going to go through each of these categories in a little more detail so that you will, understand what is meant by that. But keeping in mind, find the facts. That's what you want to go back to when you're having that moment of, oh goodness, what do I do now? And I think that nice green and white sheet is a great one to just keep it on the refrigerator, keep it taped to a wall, keep it somewhere where it's easy to find if it ever comes up that you need it. The first part is feelings. And there are a lot of feelings up here because there's a lot of feelings that can tie in with becoming suicidal. any one of these on their own isn't necessarily a sign that a person is going to go harm themselves. So just because I am sad today doesn't mean that I'm going to leave and go do something to myself. But if I'm starting to have a lot of these building up, so I'm sad and I'm feeling ashamed and I feel helpless and I feel lonely and I feel empty, the more of those that add up, the more risk I am at. And when you start hearing a lot of cues from a kid that they're feeling a lot of these things, you want to check in with them and say, hey, what's going on? Hey, you're sounding really, really sad. What's going on here? Actions. There are some things that people do that can let us know that they're either at a higher risk or that they're thinking about doing something that's going to harm themselves. Alcohol and drug misuse, that can be a pretty high risk factor for hurting yourself, including the risk of just overdosing or mixing things in a very dangerous way. Alcohol and drug use also lower our inhibitions, and so people are sometimes more likely to take a risk or do something that otherwise they would be less likely to do because they know it's not a great idea. When a person starts looking for things that can be used as a weapon or be used to harm themselves, they are putting themselves at a higher risk. You know there's something going on when all of a sudden this kid has a new interest in knives. It's at least worth asking, why? What is making this so interesting? It may just be that they're fascinated with the craftsmanship of it, but it may be that something bigger is going on. Or when kids start needing a whole lot of medication, why? What's going on? Self-harming, so this is the non-lethal self-harming, the cutting, the taking erasers and rubbing their skin. This can be things like overdoing exercise, way too restrictive eating, or binging, purging. Those are all forms of self-harm, and when they're starting to get into that kind of behavior, it's easy for it to start escalating to very dangerous levels. Prior suicide attempts, one of the best predictors of future behavior is past behavior. And unfortunately, if we know that a person has committed suicide in the past, they are at a higher risk of trying again. It's worth checking in. If you know a person has attempted in the past, check in with them. How are they doing? Because one of the things that happens is that a person has felt that their life has been really awful and not worth living anymore, or they don't deserve to live. They make an attempt at what they think is a solution by trying to end it, and it doesn't work. And now they feel like even more of a failure because I couldn't even get that right. Check in with them, make sure they're doing okay, that they're not beating themselves up over it. And a lot of times people forget that and think, oh, well, he's better now. Things are great now. Check in and make sure. Writing suicide notes or goodbye letters, or sometimes it's social media posts or videos or voice messages, things like that. If somebody is sending out messages saying that they're thinking about hurting themselves, be sure to follow up on that. Preoccupation with death and dying, when it starts becoming a theme in their writing, a theme in their art, a theme in the music that they like and that they're listening to or that they're writing, check in with them. Why are you so fascinated with this? Where's your mind going when you're hearing these things? Or what are you thinking of when you're creating this or when you're hearing this? Putting their affairs in order. So when they start cleaning up things, taking things home that they normally just leave here. Getting things settled in relationships. So they start having those conversations that sound like goodbye conversations. And it's not a natural end of the year or something like that. Giving away prized possessions. So when those things that really seemed like they mattered in the past and now they're giving it away, Why? What's going on? And it doesn't hurt to ask, because there may be a real explanation for it that makes sense, or there may be something more going on here. Taking unnecessary risks. Sometimes people want to put it out there so that it doesn't have to be me that makes the decision. So if I take this risk and something bad happens to me, well, then that's fate just saying it was my time. If I take this risk, maybe that's God's way of letting me know that I don't deserve to live. Or putting that opportunity out there for me to be punished for all the bad things that I am and that I've done. And so that can be a sign of some suicidal thinking. Fighting, getting into fights can sometimes also be that kind of a thing that I'm allowing someone else to punish me by beating me up because I'm just such a worthless, awful person, or I've done things that are so bad that I deserve that. Breaking laws. Sometimes people seem to be like seeking out, again, that kind of a punishment, that kind of consequence. Sometimes, we've probably heard the expression suicide by cop. Sometimes people are looking for that huge outcome. And sometimes what happens is that point between breaking the law and actually having the court date, between getting in trouble at school and having the meeting with the principal or the suspension hearing, that time in between is a really vulnerable time, because our minds naturally start to catastrophize about what's going to happen to me. How long is that going to last? My life is now over. Things are ruined. Somebody posted awful things about me online, and that time between when I see it or hear about it and showing up at school the next morning is horrible, because I'm going to think of all the possible ways that I'm going to be humiliated tomorrow and all the stuff I don't want to have to live through. And I might get to a point where I feel like it's just better if I'm not around anymore. One sure way out of having to deal with that is if I just end it now. Changes. So changes can be a signal that something is really going on here, because when you've got a person that is normally pretty laid back and all of a sudden they're irritable, or you've got a person who is normally on top of things and very organized, and now they're making a lot of careless mistakes and forgetting things and letting their assignments slide and letting their grades slide. What's going on? When somebody is normally very cheerful and outgoing, and now they're kind of withdrawn, what's going on? Or the other way around. Normally they're really withdrawn, and all of a sudden they're up in people's faces all the time. What's going on? It's worth checking into it. You want to look at when they start withdrawing from friends and family, those relationships that used to matter to them, or suddenly they're hanging out with a whole new crowd. Why? What's going on? When they're quitting activities that used to be important. So you guys are in the arts, when you've got that student that was a really great artist and had all these plans and all kinds of talent, and all of a sudden they're going, yeah, I'm not doing that anymore. What's going on? It could be that they've got some new thing that inspired their interest, but it could be that they're giving up on life. Major changes in sleep patterns. You've probably heard stories on the news about drowsy drivers being as dangerous as drunk drivers. When our brains don't have time to sleep and they don't get that rest, they don't function right. We're not logical. We're not able to make good choices. We're going to be overly emotional in our reactions. And if you become sleep deprived enough, you can start to show psychotic symptoms where you lose touch with reality altogether. You start to hear things that aren't there, start to see things that aren't there, start to have really distorted thinking, very delusional kind of thinking. Kids naturally have a shift that comes on with puberty, where their body wants to stay up later at night sleep in later in the morning, but they can't because they got to get up and they got to go to school. They're still staying up later at night, talking to their friends, they're on the computer, they're playing their games. Sometimes they just can't sleep. So they're up at night, they're getting up for school in the morning, and that window of actual sleep that they're getting is smaller and smaller and smaller. And some are getting no sleep at all. And so are they giving their brain what they need to function clearly? Loss of energy, that can be related to not having enough sleep. That can also be related to becoming depressed. That is a symptom of depression, is just having no energy, no enthusiasm, feeling like everything is a major imposition. Deterioration in personal hygiene. Sometimes it's safe to be gross. I work with a lot of kids who've had sexual abuse in their past, and sometimes people who have been sexually abused feel that they are less attractive as a target if they smell bad or if they look unattractive. So that kid who is wearing those same sweats for the 4th day in a row now, or is starting to smell so that you can tell when they're not even in the room yet, but they're on the way, that's a kid to check in and say, hey, what's going on? There might be something more there than just the fact that this kid's lazy. Find out what's happening there. What else is going on in your life? What purpose does this serve you? Because it does serve some kind of a purpose. There's some reason that they're doing this. Sudden or extreme changes in weight, that can go to showing that they're sometimes punishing themselves by withholding. Sometimes it shows that they are feeling very bad about themselves and wanting to change themselves. Sometimes it means when they're suddenly gaining a lot of weight, maybe they're seeking comfort through food. Sudden or unexplained sense of calm. Sometimes kids that have been very stressed out, very amped up, all of a sudden become really calm. And it might be because they found something that helps to balance out whatever that extra energy was coming from. It might be that they found something that got them out of the funk they were in. And it might be that what got them out of that funk was that they made up their mind. And now they have a decision, and their decision is, I'm going to end it. And they know how it's going to happen. Brings calm. And that's pretty scary, especially when you see that matching up with some of those pre-planning kinds of things, giving things away, writing those notes, saying goodbye to friends. When that happens and you're seeing this calm, you need to really be alert because that kid's in trouble. Threats. So if the kid is saying, I'm going to hurt myself, I wish I could just die, listen. There are some kids who will say these things because they figured out that this is a get out of jail free card, that when they're in trouble and they say, I could just kill myself, everybody forgets what they were in trouble with and focuses on, oh, we need to make you safe. Those kids are really, really rare. The vast majority of kids who are going to say things like this, and I've got all these example sentences up here, kids that say things like this are actually feeling pretty low. And so you want to check in with them. I would rather make the mistake of checking in with someone who's not suicidal and being wrong than ignoring it when there really is a risk. So I'm going to be checking in every time because I just don't think it's worth it to say, nah, he doesn't really mean it, and then find out later, yeah, he did. And I didn't take my opportunity to help. And a lot of times it doesn't come straight out as, I wish I were dead. It comes out in some of these other ones that are less obvious. But it's still worth checking in. situations. Like I said before, sometimes that lag period between when you've made a really bad choice and when the consequence comes ends up being that super vulnerable time. Also, recent losses. So if the person has had deaths in their family, if they have had, if they've heard about other people dying, if they've had friendships that have broken up, friends that drift off and are hanging out with other people, not them, breakups with their boyfriend, their girlfriend, all of those things put you at a higher risk of thinking about suicide. Changes in life that feel overwhelming. People's lives change all the time, but adolescence seems to be a time when a lot of change is happening. And when those changes are not happening in the way that you want them to, and they feel like permanent change or change that's going to last for a really long time, sometimes you start thinking, I don't want this. I don't want to be here. And if the only out that they see is by dying, that's a pretty scary spot to be in. Perceived humiliation. Saving face is so huge and so important, especially to adolescents. It's so important to seem cool, to seem like you have it together, to seem like you are the person that other people might want to be with. So important, and sometimes what we have to do is help them save face, even if we know that they're wrong, even if it means that maybe I'm going to look a little ridiculous. I can live with being ridiculous. I don't really need to base my self-esteem on what a group of kids thinks of me. I can take that blow if that means that it helps somebody else out. And sometimes we got to weigh that and decide, is it really something that I need to address in front of everybody, or can I pull a kid aside and do it privately? If somebody else is humiliating them, is there something I can do to boost them up so that their social value gets balanced back a little bit? When kids are exposed to a suicide or death under any circumstances, it puts it out there that that's a thing. There is a period of all of our lives where we're not aware of the fact that people die. Or, they die when they're really, really old. Or that happens to other people, not people I know. And then something happens and you realize, oh, people do die. People my age die. Sometimes people my age take their own life. And once that's in your awareness, it's always going to be on the menu. That increases it. When you see people that seem way more successful, like they had it together more than you did, and they hurt themselves or they completed a suicide, they had a better life than I did. There's no hope for me. And sometimes it just makes them go, oh, that's right. I could do that. When people die, we naturally start giving them a lot of attention. We talk about how great they were. We give them flowers and memorials and teddy bears. And we want to make sure that they are remembered. Kids that feel invisible want to be remembered too. They want to be talked about in those nice ways. And we want to help them feel like they matter. So we want to make sure that they're noticed and that they don't feel the only way I can be noticed is if I'm dead. Because they were not going to be around to enjoy it, but that logic isn't there for them. Their brain isn't working right at this point. So they're not seeing that, and they're thinking, hey, I could be next. I could be the next celebrity. This is not the way to get celebrity. All right, what to do? Because everyone wants to know, what can I do? When someone is coming and telling you this, or you're picking up signals, what do you do? The best thing I can say is, tell me about that. Tell me what's going on with you. It is just that simple. I need to open the door to them and say, I will listen to you. Tell me about that. identify with and empathize with their emotions. You're really hurting. I've had hurt too. Let me hear your hurt. What can I do to help? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Sometimes you just straight out need to ask. What's going on that makes you not want to be around anymore? It's always a problem-solving process. They're trying to solve a problem. Well, what is the problem? Let me help you think of other solutions, because there are others out there. You may not be aware of them. You may not know how to access them. And I might be able to help you with that. Or I might help connect you with someone that can help you with that. Tell me some of the things you've done to try to deal with these feelings. Because a lot of times they've tried stuff and felt like they failed, and I don't want to sit there repeating, oh, well, did you try this? Did you try this? And they're going, yeah, I tried it. Didn't work for me. So, all right, what have you tried already? And then I can tell them, see, you are a problem solver. You thought of all these solutions. Ask about their plan. Do they have a concrete plan? Have they started taking steps? Because I want to know, how far along is this? Is this just a fleeting thought? Because honestly, almost everyone has those fleeting thoughts at some point where they go, oh, I wish I was dead rather than have to get up and deal with this. But most of us push that out of our brain and say, well, that ain't going to happen, and then move on and deal with our life. It's okay to let people know that it's all right to have those thoughts. That doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong with you. But when they've started to take steps, they've started to make a plan, they've got their weapon, they've got things that they have given away, they've written notes, that tells you that you have a smaller time frame. This is a very serious plan. They're likely to move soon. I really want to understand how you feel. That's why I'm asking you so many questions. Because a lot of times we start asking these questions and it's turning into an interrogation. And the kids go, stop asking me so many questions. This is your answer. You say, well, I just want to know. I want to understand. That's why I'm asking the questions. Tell me what's going on, and I won't need to ask as many questions. If we put our heads together, we can come up with something. That's letting them know you're not alone in this. I'm here. I'm going to help you. Thank you for trusting me. I want to help. It's so important to let them know, I want to help you. I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to put you down. I'm not going to reject you. I want to help you. And you're not in here. You're not in this alone. I'm here for you. That sense of isolation can be overwhelming. I'm the only one that's ever felt this way. No, you're not. No one cares about me. I care. And that might be just enough to tip them back into a safe place. I'm worried about you. I noticed that you've been doing this, and describe to them what you noticed. If they have another explanation, they'll let you know what that is. But if they are in danger, just the fact that you noticed that much about them might help to challenge that belief that no one cares, no one notices me. I will help you tell your parents. A lot of times kids are afraid of what are their parents going to say, what are they going to do, how am I going to explain this to them? I'll help you with that. Don't worry, we'll help your parents to understand what's going on. You're not going to get in trouble because you're feeling this way. And listen. Listen to what they're saying. You don't have to jump in with solutions. Let them talk. Sometimes just that process of talking through it can make a person feel good or feel better. Connect. They need to feel that someone's on their side, someone's with them. We need to sometimes put a translator on, because what you see on the surface is not all that is there. And a lot of times, anger is covering up other feelings. When we're sad or vulnerable, that makes us feel really low and helpless. If I adopt anger, I'm big, I'm scary, I'm powerful. People will leave me alone. And so sometimes you got to look past the anger and go, all right, what's this covering up? What are you feeling vulnerable about? What's making you feel scared? What's making you feel weak? Laughter. A lot of times laughter can be like a nervous response to things. Sometimes laughter is just showing that I'm not comfortable talking about this. That doesn't mean that I don't take it seriously. Smiling. It's really easy to go, well, they were smiling and happy and everything must be fine. But smiling can be a facade. I'm smiling because that's what other people want to see, and I don't want to burden them with my problems. I'm smiling because I don't want you to see my pain. Sometimes I'm smiling because I've already got my plan in place. I know what I'm going to do. I'm smiling because I'm going, wait and see. Wait and see what's coming. Sometimes kids are just unresponsive, and that might be a fear reaction. They might be like feeling like the deer in the headlights right now, going, I don't even know what to say. Sometimes they don't know what kind of words can I use to describe what I'm feeling. It's so big and so powerful and so overwhelming. Where do I even begin? When you get the unresponsive kid, give them time. Say, you know what, I'm here to listen when you're ready to talk. And I don't need to rush you. Take your time. The words don't have to be perfect. Whatever you can say that helps me understand, we'll run with that. We'll build off of it. Irritated is often another way of expressing that they're afraid. When every little thing is triggering a defensive reaction, that lets you know they're scared. So we want to give them some resiliency, some things to help them out. One thing you can do is help them figure out what do they have control over? What can they control in their life? So much feels uncontrollable. What do you have control over? Self-esteem. You are a good person. There is something valuable about every person that's alive. Helping them to feel that they can recognize that and that other people recognize that. Helping them find supports. Who can you talk to? I'm asking you about this and you're telling me you don't want to talk to me. That's fine. Who can you talk to? Because I see that you're in a lot of pain. Who would you be willing to tell? Is there someone at the school, someone in your neighborhood, someone in your family? Do you belong to a church? Is there someone there you could talk to? Anyone that I can connect you with. If you're having a problem, is there some resource I can help you get access to that's going to help you with that problem? Affiliation. Is there anywhere that you feel like you fit in? Like other people really get you and you're in your place. You belong there. Helping them to find that. Where is that place where you fit in? Even if it's just that I fit in with this group of misfits that don't fit in anywhere. That's something, because those people all know what it feels like to not fit in. Okay. And you, having that positive interaction with another person, especially someone that you can perceive as having it together, having some authority. If you can have that positive interaction, that is a tremendous resiliency factor. It is also a hazard. Because you, as that successful authority figure, get to hear all the awfulness that kids are going through, and that can wear on you. It is a risk for secondary traumatic stress, which actually is similar to having post-traumatic stress disorder, only instead of having experienced the trauma experience yourself, you're hearing about what happened to someone else. And because you care and you want to help, you take that in and you feel that pain too. And it has an effect on you. And it can actually start to have some of the same symptoms that PTSD has and can become a clinical level disorder. It also sometimes just is sort of milling around underneath. It's better to recognize it when it's just slightly there and do something about it so that it doesn't become a full disorder. Make sure that you're taking care of yourself. When you're hearing these things, a lot of times you don't have time for self-care. Some kid tells you something in the hallway and now you got to go in and teach class, and you don't have time to sit and process and go, let me call my best friend and say, guess what I just heard? I need to talk this through just to get my head straight again. No, you got to switch gears and go teach class because nobody else is going to do that for you. But later on, find that friend. Talk to them. Talk to your coworkers. Find out, are you as worried about this kid as I am? You don't have to carry the burden alone. Talk to each other. And we also already talked about that. It's that connection that makes us vulnerable. It's also the connection that makes us very effective as caring people. So we just have to be aware that we are taking a risk when we're connecting with other people. And we don't want to get to that point where we're shutting down and saying, I can't deal with this trauma, so I'm going to pretend I don't see it. Or don't tell me about that, I don't want to hear about it. Because kids pick up on that, and then they're not going to tell anybody. And we don't want to end up being the teacher that's saying, I don't want to go to school tomorrow. You want to make sure that your expectations for yourself are realistic. No one expects you to know everything, to be able to do everything, fix everything. You are not a superhero. That would be a really cool career to have, but I'm looking around and I don't see any capes. We have to accept the fact that we are human, we are limited, and that's okay. It's all right to miss some things, to make some mistakes, to stumble. They always say this on airplanes, that you need to secure your own oxygen mask before you try to help someone else. If you're not breathing, you can't be very helpful. I have a coworker who always says you can't pour from an empty pitcher. Either way, the idea is definitely there. You can't be able to fully be there to help other people if you're running on empty yourself. So make sure that you are doing those things to take care of yourself and restore yourself, so that when you're needed, you have the resources to draw on and the energy to be able to handle it. Find the positives. It's so easy to get focused on everything that's going wrong and everything that could go wrong in the future. We need to make sure we're noticing the good things. So what did you do well today? Instead of what'd you screw up, what did you do well today? There's at least one thing that you got right. What can you check off your list? That, all right, I got this done. Now I can move on to something else. What did you see or hear that was beautiful or inspiring or restorative? I drove over from the building where I work this afternoon, and I saw so many trees with beautiful fall colors. And a week ago, I was a little worried we might not get much color before the leaves fall down. But I really enjoyed that drive, just because I got to see those colors. And taking a moment to savor that and just enjoy it and allow yourself to enjoy it, instead of worrying about, well, what am I going to say next? Am I on time? Are there 10 other things that are waiting to be done? Enjoy those good things when they do come along. And remember that you deserve some positive attention too. It is not selfish to take care of yourself. It is not selfish to take a couple of minutes to make sure that you are okay, to make sure you've eaten and you've gone to the bathroom and you've done what you need to do so that you're going to be able to be there for everybody else. That's the end of our presentation. Anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? All right, thank you for your attention today.